Hi there, I'm Christine Conrad, and you're listening to another episode of Innovative Tac-Tips, and I'm with Andy Parker, who is a former Utah Utes athlete, football athlete, I should preface it, and then he is also a former NFL player, which football is probably in my DNA, or in probably not my middle name, because I feel like that's not as creative, but you've done a lot more since then, doing my homework. So Andy, first question is, what do you do, and what makes your heart sing about the industry that you're in?
Yeah, well, okay, so I did play football for many years. I was fortunate to get a scholarship to play football at the U, and spent my time there. And there's a lot of history there, and a lot of evolution that's taken place since I've played, for sure. Super excited to watch the Utes play and see what they've done, and they've done some great things. But also very thankful to be able to get drafted. Playing the NFL, I'm a tight end, or I was a tight end, and I got drafted by the Raiders first, where I played there for 2 years. Went back to the Chargers, got picked up by the Chargers during free agency, or the first Plan B free agent situation, and then went back to the Raiders. But feel very fortunate to play in the NFL, and I'm not quite sure if I remember the other part of your question, but
Well,
anyway, when I retired from football, and there's tons of stories I can tell you about, my times in the NFL and whatnot, but and how I got there and all that stuff. But what I do now is, I'm basically an entrepreneur. I like to build and start businesses. I'm passionate about helping people, and I really want to do something that is going to, help as many people as I can along the way. And I've always kind of leaned towards, real estate. My father was a contractor when I was growing up, so I was involved in, a lot of construction stuff when I was a kid. And, when I got in the NFL, I started flipping homes and building homes, and, I did that in the off season, of course. And so, that was kind of how I got into the real estate side of things, and that evolved into a health club, which evolved into working with an affordable housing nonprofit, which didn't turn into, but that I'm doing that still, but that kind of evolved into being a broker because I'm now the president of the nonprofit. So it'd be a good idea to get my broker's license, and so one thing led to the next, and I got into real estate tech, and then I got into being the business support director for a national brokerage, and that led into me starting my own brokerage.
So I noticed you also were a football coach too for a little over a decade, which I think is very admirable, because I coached dance, and the paycheck is like basically people remember, and you've made an impact in their life and taught them. I believe it's more than just like the sport that they play, right? Like the reinforcement of, you're teaching values, you're teaching work ethic, you're teaching team play, like how to play like a team, all of that stuff. So
the life lessons that go into coaching, I think good coaches don't make it about X's and O's and winning a lot and losing, but they make it about the player. What life lessons can be taught during this time, and how are you going to impact someone? Because football for me really helped me in just a number of ways develop my own philosophies, and watching coaches through the years. I knew what I wanted to be like and what I didn't want to be like, and so I learned from both the positive and the negative side of coaching. And I've had some pretty hard-nosed coaches that got in your face, and a lot of just old school kind of mentality that today just doesn't work. It just doesn't make any sense. It's like during conditioning, it was like if the coach would feel satisfied if you puked, right? You got sick, or they drove you to where you just and really that energy system that they're trying to train is just, I don't know where that came from, but fortunately I was able to study. My major was exercise in college, and so I learned all about how the body works, and how to how to build it, how to make it work more efficiently. And so I was able to take that and transfer it into one of the businesses that I had. And while I was it was a health club. So as I was a personal trainer for 20 some odd years, I also was coaching a lot and working with athletes and doing performance training and, all that fun stuff. And, but my time as a coach, I wouldn't trade that for anything. I enjoyed that thoroughly, and actually would love to get back to it if I can. I'm not sure if I can. I'd like to.
Hey, I always say stranger things have happened.
I mean, coaching was one of the funnest things that I've done in a long time. I mean, I have a lot that I've learned and can depart, instill into others. I mean, there's just, years and years and years of practicing and learning and developing. And, when I took my entrepreneurial spirit and applied it to my technique. I did some pretty unique things.
I will say coaching is like the biggest, I think, paycheck, right? From a non-monetary piece. I've had students where they're like, you've really made me be a better person. And some of the students are now in college that I coached and stuff. And it's just, well, they're graduate college, but you just see them having their new jobs and all that stuff. It's like you had a little bit part of their life to like really influence and help impact it in a way that's going to be productive. I think that's like, I don't know.
And sometimes you never know who you're impacting, That's the thing about life is you be yourself and, just kind of be the way God wants you to be. And you just don't know how you're impacting other people's lives. But, the principles that you learn in sports carry over into the business world as well. I mean, there's certain principles of management and, sort of structure and organization and things like that go into sports and sports teams and principles. I was talking to my marketing guy earlier today, and I said, the main universal principle that we deal with is being able to compete. And, you have to position, whether it's an athlete or it's a real estate agent, you have to position them to compete. If you cannot compete, you will never win. And I used to ask my players, I said, what do you want to do this year? What are your goals? Like, we want to win. And it's like, okay, well, give me some things that are going to help you to win. So they say a bunch of stuff, and I said, well, you forgot one thing. And they're like, what's that? And I said, this might be at the top of the list, is that if we can't compete, our chances of winning go down a lot, like almost to zero. So we have to first get ourselves where we can compete. And that's my job, is to position you guys so you're in leverage and run plays and position you so, we can have a shot to compete. And your job is to get your body in its the best shape possible, get your minds right, practice perfection, and then let's go out on the field and implement. And so, let's not forget the idea that being able to compete is a big deal. In business, it's the same kind of thing. If you're not creating a good first impression, if you don't come across, with some unique propositions and things like that are going to, provide a better service to your client or whatever, are you going to be able to compete? That's why differentiations in real estate is so important. Is so assuming they provide a better service. Because clients, no trust goes so far. I mean, what clients really want is they want results. So if you can show that you can provide a better result than the next guy, then you have a fighting chance to win that listing or whatever.
Yeah, it's preparing for the time to perform. I think to your point, it's like you have to be, it's like a consistent thing, right? The things that you do on a daily basis or the practice that you're at, and you give your full, I always say full out, right? When you're dancing, you full out, you do it to the best of your ability. So when you actually have to perform, you hit that threshold, because if you're half doing it, right? You could be doing it physically, but not mentally. It's like when you get to like center stage, I'll use dance, right? Or like you get to the end zone, right? You have to put full effort into it. And I think to your point, when you're coaching someone, you're helping, one, they have to be coachable, but you have to like mold them into for that opportunity so they can capitalize on it. I agree with you 100%. Is there anything, I guess, you personally where, like, because again, football and even coaching and just like being an entrepreneur is hustle, right? You're hustling in every day. Like it's like almost like part of your DNA. Was there a time where you thought something was a failure that it ended up being a success in your life?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that. I retired from the NFL. I have been drafted and played for 7 years and all that. Unfortunately, you get hurt, and things can't continue forever. But then you go into business, and I was like, well, in the NFL, you make some pretty good money, and so how do you transition from making a lot of money to no money to then looking for a job and making you're almost psychologically unemployable. It's like I can't go down and make a $50,000 salary. I mean, that just doesn't work. Although it might be great for someone, it's just I was young. You're young and you don't know much. Especially going from the NFL, where you're told what to do, or football in general, where you're handing an itinerary, and I was living off an itinerary for probably 20 years almost, right? Because you're just handed, here's what you're supposed to do, and you just follow the itinerary, and then you're thrusted out to the world with not a lot of skills in business, and so you have to either go work for somebody or be an anchor, or do something that follows kind of that kind of a thing. A lot of athletes, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that's what they follow. I wanted to do something that was not so predictable, right? So I went into business for myself. I actually started a personal training studio, and that evolved into a pretty good sized health club. But the first 5 years of that, I mean, I didn't make any money. I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't know how to mature a business. I didn't know how to grow a business. I didn't know the business best practices, right? And so I ended up reading a book that actually changed my whole, was a game changer. That was the E-Myth. The E-Myth is a good book for entrepreneurs because it helps you get structured and organized. And I think his name was I forget his name. I think it's Gerber. And this guy, once I got done reading that and implementing that, I believe God used that to help me, get organized. And once I did, I mean, things just really took off. And so I was very thankful for that. So, plugging into business best practices and understanding that, when I first entered into the NFL, I was more, going off of brute strength. And through the year, I developed my own technique, and that made things easier for me. It was still a lot of hard work, and it was brutal, but having the right technique and understanding, the mindset of the defensive player helps a lot. And so, I got into the mental aspect of things a lot more later on in my career, and it made things easier. Where I think I had better success. So that's the benefit of experience, right? You learn from your mistakes, or being a professional athlete, no matter what you're in, you're going to learn from your mistakes. I mean, mistakes or failure is your path to success. I mean, that's the way. And you have to. It's not that you want to embrace failure, but you have to learn from your mistakes. You have to learn from those so-called failures. I mean, the analogy I use all the time is that in baseball, you are super successful if you fail 70% of the time. That's crazy, and so you have to have kind of the right mindset going in. As a coach, what I used to there's two sides, coach athlete, right? So as an athlete being coached, right, the coach can strike fear into you and make you afraid to make mistakes, right? Or a coach that can help you go 100 miles an hour with your hair on fire, and if you make a mistake, then you learn from it, right? And it's just a mind. And also your teammates, helping coach can get your teammates to back you and not condemn you, for making a mistake. But you're going to feel like empowered to go out there and work as hard as you can, not be like, don't hit the ball to me, don't throw the ball to me, please. You know, just, you don't want to operate in fear. You want to operate in just reckless abandon, and practice perfect, right? Or perfect practice makes perfect. So you gotta always strive to be excellent. And, as a Raider, their tagline is commitment to excellence. And that didn't mean much to me when I was there, because I was just happy to be there and, do what I'm doing. But really, as I understood that principle, the idea of excellence, I'm actually writing a book about it. The idea of excellence is that it's not something you'll ever achieve, in my mind. I don't think you'll ever be excellent in anything, because there's always chances to get better. And there's a saying in football that if you're, it's like you'll never stay the same. Like, it's either you get better or you get worse. You never stay the same, because if you're not getting worse, because you can't stay the same. Everybody's making progress around you. And so whether you're in business, technology is constantly changing. People are inventing and innovating new techniques and new things that are going to maybe move you into an obsolete category. So you've got to keep up with the tech. You got to keep up with, what's going on, and innovate yourself. You're always trying to figure out how you can become better. And obviously, that's a service-based business. So you're always trying to provide a better service, more effective service, and that's, helping your client, achieve a better price or sell it quicker or whatever, right? In athletic, you're learning skills, and are you going to be able to be in the top whatever, and so for whatever it's been, I've always been able to, wherever I've been, I've become the captain or one of the captains, and so it's like, every day you just show up, try to get better every day, and just never stop, because failure is, I don't think failure really ever happens unless you quit, right? Michael Jordan didn't become arguably one of the best basketball players in the history of basketball by stopping. He shot more baskets than anybody on the planet, and he figured out a way, once he figured out his system, in order to make more shots and not miss more shots. To
your point, Tony Robbins was to your point with business, adding value, right? Like, the more that you can add value to your customer, your client, the more that they're going to pick you from the shelf versus they're going to go in the back. And then if you can add value and you can keep adding value to the other person by solving their problems or getting, what their desired outcome is, the more success, I think, progress, right? Success, if you can, if you progress forward and produce in a way that's efficient and productive, I think and taking ownership, right? I feel like success on the opposite side of failure is taking responsibility regardless of the outcome, right? Like, if it fails, you're taking, and then when you were saying about football, Nick Saban, former Alabama coach, was saying it's a mentality, right? Like, you have to buy in. You have to buy into the mentality when you're at the Raiders, right? Is mediocre people don't like high performers don't like mediocre people, right? Everyone has to buy in, because if not everyone buys in, they're not working towards the common goal to get better. And so, to your point, when it's when you're coaching students or coaching athletes, same but different, right? Different, is they need to understand that they can listen, but they need to be competent in what you're saying and absorb that and then apply it to practice. And so, throwing in the towel in the most athletic, right, way, throwing the towel is technically failure, right? Giving up on something that you set for yourself.
It's never enough. If people could just figure out a way to show up every day, they're going to kill it. They'll absolutely kill it. If when they get inside their head and they keep talking to themselves, I can't do this, the coach is a jerk, and I'm out of here, and get prideful or whatever. And there was a lot of times that I felt like quitting. It was hard. It was just, I'm 17 years old. I'm going to college. Everybody's bigger and stronger than I am. And, I was just like, this is terrible. I'm in the snow in this place. And my faith really helped pull me through, because when when God shows up for you, you don't forget it. And creating an opportunity is one thing, and then having the strength to go through it and finish strong is another. And everything that I've gone through, and I mean, I was 200 pounds, if that, or 195 pounds my freshman year. And then I end up, getting Iron Ute 2 years in a row and getting drafted and ranked second in the country in the combines coming out. I mean, that didn't happen by accident. It was a lot of hard work, but it was perseverance. But understanding God's sacrifice was for me was kind of where I could say, this is just a way of giving back a little bit to you as a thank you, and sacrificing my body and training and all that. And so, and it's also, nothing's done by itself, and where that drive comes from. I think that, there's verses in the Bible that speak to this, but if you seek first the kingdom of God, he'll give you the desires of your heart. And that's not monetary things. It's like whatever gets you excited to get up and you're passionate about, God put it there. And so, the drive that I had was not normal. It's just not. I mean, the things that I did, just, who would do that? And I loved it. It was so much fun for me. And now I look back and go, man, I would never do that. But that, I believe, that in and of itself was part of what God did for me, And so, whatever your passion is, whatever you want to do, if God's first in your life, then he'll give you the, kind of what you need in order to get through it.
Is there, just to add to that, is there anything that, like, when you get stressed out, right, when you lose control, like just rational, right, thought, what do you do to, like, regain focus? Like, do you have any advice or some, like, for people that, like, or for people who get injured, right? People who get injured, they tear their ACL. Like, is there any, like, like, it could be a mental game, right? It could be getting frustrated or all that stuff.
I've been through all that, and, I call them trials, right? Trials come and go. And trials kind of prepare you for other trials, and or they help others, or the trials that you go through are kind of designed, or not designed, but one of the benefits would be that you could help others that are going through something similar. The experience, the things that I've learned through football and how God has been faithful to me, kind of prepares you for whatever comes down the road. I'm heading into a health issue right now where I have to get a bone marrow transplant. And that situation in and of itself is kind of like, it's kind of like, I was drafted and I'm thankful for getting drafted. Now I have to make the team and go through training camp. It's like God provided a perfect match, 10 out of 10, bone marrow a donor, right? 25-year-old, somewhere in the United States. And it makes you think, it's like, wow, 25 years ago, somebody was born that might save my life. That's just an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah.
And so, when you go through things that I've been through as far as football goes, and all the trials and ups and downs, and, it's just showing up. And so I'm just taking one day at a time. I'm trusting God in all things, but just like I did when I was back playing football, because that was physically and mentally the toughest thing that a lot of people ever go through. Making an NFL football team, when you're only as good as your last play and you're always being evaluated and others are trying to come in and take your job, it's not for sissies, So, those things I think prepare you for next things in life, And so, I'm about ready to head down another one of those deals.
Yeah, it prepares you for what is the greatest battles, basically, because I feel like coaches and athletes, it's crazy how much criticism people throw at them, right? It's just like, to me, I'm like, I'll read these comments and I'm like, what? Like, in my head, I'm like, this person is probably not saying average, but just they're not an athlete, and for them to criticize, throw rocks at them, and you're like, I'm sorry, you should probably put that energy into a job, but I'm not gonna say that because I'm gonna mind my manners. But I think it's crazy how much, Tom Brady, for example, right? Tom Brady, he took that and he fueled it to win another Super Bowl. And I think if you can do it in a way that's productive and can ultimately produce, maybe a positive positive situation. I think it's positive because winning Super Bowls is positive because it's like winning team, obviously. But I think that you can feel that to get better. I mean, again, to your point, it's a mind game and a physical game. And I guess with that, is there any, like you mentioned one book that changed your life. Is there a book that you gave most as a gift or have given most as a gift that I guess you keep giving that maybe influenced your life on top of the one that you had mentioned?
Yeah.
Being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question, the Bible is, my number one bestseller,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
talk about life lessons and things that you can learn, 66 books spread out over, 1,500 years or whatever it is. I mean, it's just an amazing book. I mean, stories in there and the fulfilled prophecies and just the wisdom that you can get. And the fact that it talks about a guy that backed it up, I mean, I have people that, died and came back to life. I mean, that's pretty rare. If not, he's the only guy,
Yeah.
So,
I think it's fun. It's interesting, the world, like the parables that are in it, like the world, like the history behind it. I think that that's something, to me, being like a history, I don't know if you want to call it a history buff, but just like learning who came before me, right? I think that that's really important. Knowing like what happened during that time, right? Where were they? What was going on? I think that gives a lot of context to the parable, because I think a lot of the time people tend to like pick and choose, right? Certain phrases, like the whole context of it, I think is huge. My mom just like studied the book of John, and I studied the book of John like 3-4 years ago. And it's like, you learn it in Sunday school as like, it's a very loaded, packed book, but it's really reinforces courage, right? Like having the courage, just having the confidence to press forward. And I think that kind of resembles an athlete, right? An entrepreneur, like you don't get really a day off on that. Like you just, and to me, entrepreneur, you need a lot of energy, right? You need a lot of energy, you need a lot of drive, and you need all that stuff. And like, I guess I have a question. Getting older, do you feel, or getting more wise, I should say, do you feel like you lost energy, or do you still have the same energy that you used to? Like, obviously it's a little bit different, but do you still, because I'm a ball of energy, and I'm like, oh, in the next, like if I'm 15 years from now, am I going to be as energetic? Have you felt like you've lost any of that energy, or do you still have it? Like, is it still...
I can say that going through what I'm going through, the fact that, your bone marrow is not producing what it's supposed to. Prior to that, I was up 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and I would go, and I was driven to do that, and I loved it, right? And then, when your doctor calls you and says, dude, you need to get to the ER because your platelets are 10 and they're supposed to be 100, over 130, I'm like, and then life throws a curve at you. You got to go through the bumps in the road, and you go, okay, well, I don't know what's going to happen with this, but I'm going to take it with the same approach. One day at a time, trust God, and just go through it, cut it out, and I see what happens. Stay tuned. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, was it day by day, right? Like, you focus on today's troubles because tomorrow's going to have more.
It turns out you kind of need your bone marrow, right?
Yeah.
Basically 3 things, right? You need your red blood cells for hemoglobin, which carries oxygen to your cells, so you can live, and not be, kind of this bundle of, sitting down with no energy. And then you need your white blood cells for your immune system, and you need platelets so you don't, bump your head and bleed to death, right? So
yeah.
Those 3 things are really essential to life, and that's why the Bible says the life's in the blood, right? Well, it's very true, and I'm accepting that, and it's very humbling. I have to say, going from an elite athlete to high performance kind of high energy guy, just go all the time, to being limited to like, this is should I get up and go to the fridge, or let me think about that.
Right.
Thinking about little things, but. By the grace of God, I am where I am, and I'm going to be headed through this, process, and we're going, it'll be great. But, like we've always said, you're going to learn from these life lessons, and God has always shown to be faithful in all things that I've gone through. And I could tell you stories that would, they're significant to me because I lived them. But I would just say that if you're going through something, number one, trust God. I mean, belief is one thing, but trust is a whole new thing. And when you put your trust in something, that is a big deal. And I think that's what God's looking for, is you put your trust in Him. I mean, people believe and they have middle, understanding of God and the Bible and things, but when it goes from here to your heart, you go from belief to trust. I mean, that's a game changer.
Yeah. Just two more questions for you, which I guess would add on to your answer is, if you had a billboard that reached billions of people, like just billions, what would you could put a phrase, you could put a paragraph, you could put emoji, what would you put on it for?
It'd be a Bible verse,
Okay.
And there's a ton of them, but John 3:16, was always, kind of the go-to verse, because it's so encapsulating, and so it, and there's tons of them, but that's probably what it would be. Yeah.
Okay. And then if people want to learn more about you and your stories and life stories, and I think the best way to obviously not wisdom, but to gain knowledge, right, is to ask someone who's been through it. It kind of shortens the time of that, and then also maybe the pain, depending on if it's if there's some physical interaction. Where can they find out more?
Well, I think my information is on LinkedIn. So, if you look me up on LinkedIn, I'm there. I think I have, I think my YouTube channel is pretty accessible, but I don't know if there's much in the way of contact information. But you guys go to my website, smart.realestate. It's not smart.com, it's smart.realestate. And you can learn more about, our business. And there's a section about story and stuff on there too. So you can learn about me there. But, if you just want to talk about whatever you're dealing with too, I'm happy to chat with you and, try to encourage you any way I can.
Sounds good. Well, thank you. I appreciate your time, and I will probably talk to you later. I guess it's what is it? It's not goodbye, it's see you soon. I think my grandpa said that. It's not goodbye, it's see you soon. So I appreciate your time.
It's bye for now. Yeah. Thanks, Kristen.
Yeah.